Good evening, everyone. Today continues to be January 17th, and it's 7 o'clock, and I am calling to order the Groton Board of Education special meeting, which is for continued review of the superintendent's budget. At this point, Susan, I will pass the baton to you so that you can kind of guide us in the work ahead of us tonight.
So tonight's deep dive is really around special education and support services, which Denise Doolittle and Nadine Macklin are on to give you information. But I just wanted to also say there's a place in there for high school completion and adult ed. And I see Melissa Manzione, who happens to be one of the principals of that program and directors of that program. I don't know if she can say if she's ready to go and would like to go first, so that then we can go through special education kind of uninterrupted.
So you're talking about going down to where?
High school completion adult ed.
Do people, do the board members, just by like a show of hands, do you approve of just moving an agenda topic up more higher?
Thank you.
All right.
And Melissa just said she's here. And
all right.
she can take us. Those are the pages 556 through 559.
I'll put them up and like we've done in the past, I'll put them up, go through it a little bit, and then we'll take it down so you can see everybody and ask the questions. So this is 5-5-6. This is function 1310, high school completion. There is no changes from the prior year. I'll go down to 5-5-7, and these are the dollar figures. And you see that there is no change in salaries or benefits, but then some adjustments made under expenses. Let's see, looks like a decrease in classroom supplies, but an increase in instructional equipment for $3,000. Overall, for this section, it's actually a decrease of $1,588 or 1.6%.
And this is the portion that's paid for through the operations funds. There are grants that come in to help support adult education as well.
That's correct.
But this is the portion that the Board of Ed pays for.
Yes, that's correct.
Melissa, how's it going this year? How's your enrollment doing?
So enrollment started off very low. We started late. My co-director, Michelle McCreskey, and I got a late start. But we picked up a few kids along the way. We're trying to increase our advertising. I'd like to send out some flyers to maybe the elementary schools closest to the sub base, and just to attract the parents, not the kids, of course, just looking to get the parents to come join us here at the high school.
Well, I have to say, when I've been out and about in the community, I've had people who've been interested in jobs in Groton, but need to get their GED.
Okay.
So I've encouraged them to look into adult ed because it's a wonderful resource for them. And it could be something that could also bring about a job. So
Absolutely.
There are folks who are interested in that. So I think we just have to get the word out.
Okay, good. So I will work on that. I'll put that down in my notes.
Thank you.
Yep. So we have a partnership with New London Adult Ed, who comes in and takes care of the GED and the ESL classes and the Americanization course. And they also offer some enrichment courses, which I kind of would love to be able to do that here at Groton. I know we're trying to get our hands on the diploma program first, and then maybe Michelle and I can branch off and offer some enrichment courses.
But I know that Groton citizens can also participate in all the enrichment that's happening in New London and elsewhere. There's a wonderful catalog that comes out every year.
Yes, it's
so
beautiful.
It comes to everybody's mailbox. So pay attention. There might be something just right.
You should have just gotten it like the last couple of weeks. You would have gotten it in your mailbox. And there's some great stuff from like art, like knitting. The ladies here have a fantastic time. I like to sit in and join them a couple times. There's a lot of artsy stuff. There's financial advisement.
Good.
Good stuff is offered. So, you know, if you have a free night, come on down. It's a lot of fun here. Keep it nice and loose.
And it's a great opportunity. The adult ed program actually has 17-year-olds and older kids who want to complete their high school diploma, and they walk at graduation with our Fitch High School students. So it's sometimes a good alternative way to get their education, to get their diploma from Fitch High School. And so we encourage them, should they need to work, for instance, during the day, and then they can work, you know, do the program at night.
And they actually get some credit for their daytime work that
Yes.
they do. And we
Yes.
have a graduate who just finished his last course tonight. So we
Yay.
have one more. So add that to our list. So
That's
very
good
happy.
news.
Liz?
Thank you. I was just wondering, how many students do you currently have enrolled in this right now?
We have 5 in the diploma program.
5 in the diploma program. Is this the program that used to meet at Westside?
Yes.
Okay, so this ran the whole gambit of all the different core courses, and this is the thing for that you can get, you have to have the 24 credits in order to graduate, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and this is just a one for Ken. Ken, on line 730, it says replace of instructional equipment was $3,000, but the year prior, it says 0. How is that a 0% increase?
I think we had this, didn't we have this discussion last week?
Yeah, but I never.
You're
we
right.
haven't
It's
finished
not
it.
0. It's some irrational number. We will make a correction so it doesn't show up as 0.
Okay, so I just
future.
was wondering if that was still. Sorry if I'm beating a dead horse.
I've got it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to recognize Dean and then Rita.
Thank you. Let me lower my hand first before I forget.
But
So,
then I can't find you. Okay, there you are.
all right. So do we have a handle? I mean, this has been going on for eons, which is there's always a segment of the population that never graduates for one reason or another, and then is able to, desires, regrets, et cetera, comes back and tries to finish up. Do we have an idea? Do we have any stats on, for example, in Groton, just what percentage of the adult population has not been able to graduate with a high school diploma and could benefit from a program like this?
I can get those stats for you. I don't have them off the top of my head tonight,
Yeah.
but I can get them for you.
Because I mean, I ask out of curiosity because I'm sure that within that group, there is a good chunk that really doesn't care either way. They're doing whatever they're doing in life and don't feel the need for it. And there's another chunk that would like to, never gets around to it. There's another chunk that actually does something about it. But I'm sort of curious as to, you know, what our population looks like. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rita?
Typically, we have about 12 to 17 students graduating from the program each year. Just varying. I think through COVID, we might have had a more difficult time getting kids back. But certainly, I think through working with Rebecca Baez with communication, Melissa, I think you guys have already done some of that. We can really spread the word. And I think getting out to the community, getting out to, you know, the Navy side of town and, you know, Branford Manor and some of those other areas that we can really make sure that our community members know what they could, you know, achieve through this program.
I have one follow-up now that you bring that up. I'm thinking of adults and you keep mentioning kids and I understand, you know, what's a 17-year-old, what's an 18-year-old.
Right.
My question now is, do we know how many people drop out of high school? How many kids drop out of high school? There's always somebody that does. So how many are there?
I don't have that number. I can go work with our counseling department tomorrow and try to get a number for you.
Yeah. And also as important is why do they drop out?
Mhm.
It could be just because they can. Some kids just don't like school.
Right.
Others have other problems going on.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rita? You're muted.
Okay, so I have two quick questions. I've taught in this program for many years when it was at Fitch High School. And with 5 students enrolled, are you still employing 12 plus part-time staff members? Or does that sort of fluctuate by the amount of students you have in the program?
That will fluctuate based on the number of students we have. There were, I think, as many as 12 teachers before Michelle and I came on board. I think COVID it hit the program very hard. We've been reaching out to our students through phone calls, through mail and email and cell phone numbers, whatever we have. We're trying to find these kids, even on social media. We've been trying to like hunt them down and inviting them to come back, because if we lose them after 90 days, it's kind of like we never had them as a student and we have to start all over again in those gains, those measurable gains that the kids have to show to reflect upon our program. So we are trying to find everybody. It's not easy. I don't know where they go. Sometimes I guess they just, you fall off the school wagon and you just don't want to get back on it. It's hard. It's a.
And my other question is, do you still have students from Ledyard that are enrolled in the program?
We only have, in the diploma program, we only have Groton students, but there could be some Ledyard students enrolled in the GED program. I can find out for you.
Ledyard used to be able to enroll also in the Groton diploma program at one time, because they didn't have one. So they
Okay.
used to come to Groton. I don't know if that's the case. And my other question is for Ken. On this line item then, adult education, 124, is that the staff? That's the 42,000 that the increase from. Ken, is that on line 124? Is that where you're showing the staff?
Yeah, that's the cost of the teachers.
So if we only have 5 students and we have fewer teachers right now, wouldn't that go down a little bit? Because it did go up from 2022 to 2023.
Yeah, but once we have a better idea of where that what that cost is going to be, we'll update it. At the time of this, we published this in December. We thought maybe there'd be more students coming in, but it looks like that's not the case. So that will probably go down.
Okay, well, there's the savings. Thank
Yeah.
you.
We do have registration coming up on the 24th and the 25th. So we've made a big push. We've hung flyers a lot of places and by word of mouth. So we're hoping to get a big turnout.
Right.
hopefully.
Thank you.
Thank you. So share
I'm
this, share the dates with your friends.
I am going to recognize Beverly and then Liz.
Thank you, Kim. I was wondering if the students in the credit diploma program, do they receive a Fitch High School diploma?
Yes, it's from Groton. I guess it is the students do walk with the Fitch procession, and I'm not sure. I thought it was a Groton Public Schools diploma.
I always thought it was a Fitch High School, but we can double check to make sure what the
I
actual
can
diploma
actually
says.
pull one out of the closet right now.
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Liz?
I just was wondering, and Melissa walked away. I was just wondering if transportation is an issue. Have you found that transportation is a problem? And if that is a problem, is there something we could do about it?
It actually is a problem. A lot of our students say that because we're not on the bus line, there's really nothing that they can do to get here other than friends and family. Adult Ed has released an opportunity for us to create an account with Uber or Lyft to be used for special emergency situations. But our kids are more, we need to get them more, I guess, transportation just for on a longer term basis. So either I was thinking of calling the bus company and trying to lobby to have a stop at the top of the hill here in front of Fitch High School. Maybe just one stop to drop the students off at 5 o'clock and one to pick them up at 8:30. Or maybe we can work out a deal with with Uber and or Lyft. And then we've also talked about maybe the possibility of changing location of the adult ed back to someplace more centrally located.
Thank you.
Bev?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was definitely, that was exactly my question. Would you think about changing your location? Where the bus went by, like Thames River Magnet School, the bus goes right by that school. So that would be a good location, go back to the old West Side area. And then a lot of students might be able to walk to that location also.
Okay, thank you. I'll take notes on that.
Or perhaps the community center. The only problem with Thames is they have little tiny desks and little tiny chairs.
Yeah.
So it might not really be a really appropriate place for adults, but we can certainly look into different locations and maybe survey our community. I mean, just to make them aware that it's there and what their needs are and what would make it even better for them.
Michelle, my co-director, and I have started talking about other ways to increase enrollment. We thought we were just brainstorming, possibly doing some courses over the summer, satelliting our class locations at like Susan said, the community center or the library, just to make it a little bit more accessible. I don't know if this is doable, but just options. And Michelle and I have not yet had a chance to circle back with the superintendent or assistant superintendent just yet to speak about all our ideas.
Yeah, I think it would be important for the board to be kept apprised about, because though I think 5 is good, because I'm glad that there's 5 people who are pursuing a better educational experiences for themselves. My concern is to stay at 5, how feasible is that? And so I think I don't know, Susan, could we see if the board can, once they do their enrollment and stuff, whether we could see if we could have that information brought back to us? Thank you.
Ken, it looks like there were 2 more pages. Did we get through 558 and 559 yet?
I haven't shown them yet. There's not much to them, but this is the adult education tuition that we pay to New London. I'll put it up real quick. This is page 5-58. There are no FTEs in this program. And then down here in 5-59, the cost for this program is $207,000 this year and last year. We do have, I think it's a 1% cushion there in case they increase that rate.
That would be good to see what attendance is for the GED and the EL folks. Also to see if the location, I mean, I think some of those courses, even while they take place at Fitch, there's other programs that take place in New London. So to find out really from that group how our attendance is and how that program is working as a
Absolutely.
follow-up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Melissa, thank you.
I'm on it.
So Rita and Beverly.
Yeah, I would like to know the number of students that are enrolled, because that is quite a large amount of money that we're paying to New London for the GED and the ESL. But I also have a question that it says here that we receive a partially paid state grant. I know it's usually by the number of students enrolled. So if you could give us a figure for what you're receiving from the state for the grant. And also it says it's paid directly to the town, so the board doesn't really see that money. But we're paying it out of our budget. So, that's another thing when we speak to the town that, we need to bring up. And also I'd really like the figures on how much is this, the state grant we're receiving that is going to the town. Thank you.
I'll get those numbers and provide those to Susan and Melissa, and they'll forward them out to you.
Thank you.
Beverly?
Ken, is the 207,000, is that a flat cost, or how do they calculate how much we pay? to New London?
That's a flat amount that we've paid. It actually predates me. We get an invoice with just that amount.
So it doesn't go by the number of students that we have. So if we only had 3 students, we'd be paying the same $207,000. Okay.
Also, Beverly, it's open to all community members from Groton to participate in any of the enrichment opportunities beyond the GED and beyond the EL. We certainly, we are almost considered a bilingual district and have bilingual schools. So we have many family members that come in, and enroll their students here that are learning our English language, so could really benefit from this. So I think it's getting the word out, making sure it's accessible. There's a lot of things we have to think about here.
Melissa, do they receive a Fitch High School diploma?
So it says here, I don't know if you could see that. No, you can't. It says Groton Public Schools Adult Education Program. I don't have one that actually has the diploma inside. All the diplomas were mailed to students, but there's a photo of Fitch High School. I'm sorry, you can't see this. So it looks like it's a Fitch High School diploma. Yes.
But that's not for GED students. That's
No.
only for the diploma
This-
program.
This is the diploma program, right? So the 5 students in the diploma program is not part of that $207,000 number that we're discussing. That's for the GED and the ESL. Both those 2 programs are flourishing. So I think
That would be good to get those numbers too, because that really does support our community. Besides the enrichment programs that people can participate if they knew about it and, saw that. But then again, a lot of those are in New London, so they'd have to have transportation to go.
So that was my other point. When at one time, I think around maybe about 6 years ago, we switched to New London, teaching the GED and the ESL. Before that, it was always Norwich that we paid for the service. It'd be interesting to see how much Norwich charges. And then at the high school at Fitch, we did the enrichment, the town of Groton. We had Italian, Spanish. There were a lot of different courses. I mean, at one time when we used to have auto mechanics and woodworking, we also did that there. And so it was with Park and Recs. So there's been a lot of changes. So I'd like to know how much the Norwich GED ESL program is in comparison to the New London also. Thank you.
I do attend a regional adult ed meeting with the directors from Norwich, New London, and I think there's one other town, maybe Stonington. I can ask. I don't know if they'll be willing to share that information, but I will try to get that number for you.
No, Ken can get that. You don't have to get that.
No.
That's Ken's job.
So I'm actually sensing, as we continue to know our story, as a Groton School District, it really sounds to me that maybe it would be really good information for us to have an agenda topic sometime this spring about the adult education enrichment program and how it interfaces with the community, and have a larger conversation about how does this get marketed, where should it be located, and all those things. So I am, so Ms. Joan, could you help remind me that I would like to have that as an agenda item coming up after our budget stuff? Thank you. Any other question about adult ed? Melissa,
Thank
it
you,
was
Melissa.
Melissa, it was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. I've got all your questions. I will get you answers ASAP.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
right.
you for doing that. I think that brings us back now to special instruction, which is 540 through 549.
Exactly.
Thank you, Susan.
Here is 5-40 right here. This is the FTE page. No change in FTEs from this year's budget. And then we'll go down to the dollars. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not speaking over you, Nadine, am I?
No, you're doing great, Ken.
Thanks. And then under the costs, salaries and wages up 5.6%. This reflects a competitive wage adjustment for our paras, as well as a contractual increase for the teachers. Employee benefits reflects the increase in group insurance as per Anthem, and then the expenses, travel and supplies is unchanged from this year's budget. Total increase for this function, 69,482 or 5.5%.
Rita?
If you wanted to orient them a little bit, Nadine, to that
Oh, I
first
just have
page.
a quick question. Where would be our contract services, let's say with Learn? What page of the budget would that be on for special education? That's a whole separate page, correct?
Yep. Hi, Rita. I can see if I can find that.
Well, I mean, you can just let us know if we're gonna get to it tonight, or is it someplace else?
We are. We're hoping
Oh,
to.
we are, then I'll just wait.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. Nadine, do you want to tell the board a little bit about the preschool program and the goals of the program?
Sure. So our integrated preschool program, it's a program that is comprised of a 50-50 ratio. 50% of our students have developmental delays, and the other 50% are general education peer models. And each of our integrated preschool program classrooms are comprised of an AM and a PM session. Our program is accredited through NACE, which stands for the National Accreditation of the Education of Young Children, which is a national accreditation. And our teachers, they use the Connecticut Early Learning and Developmental Standards to guide instruction. And they really plan very intentional learning experiences for each of their students. At Mystic River, we do have what we've renamed as the Early Otters program, which is the self-contained program for our preschoolers who have significant developmental delays and need some more intensive instructional support. And we've shifted that to an AM and a PM session. Formerly, it was just one class, but to expand it to address the needs of our population, we've actually created an AM and a PM session for the self-contained program in preschool. We also have our early childhood assessment team, otherwise known as ECAT. They are located this year at Mary Morrison, and that is comprised of a speech and language pathologist and a special education teacher. And so they are responsible for doing all of the evaluations to determine eligibility for any of our new incoming preschool students with developmental delays or other disabilities. Are there any questions?
I know that Matthew has had his hand raised before Nadine, you started to talk, so I am going to recognize Matthew and then Beverly, if that's okay.
Thank you, Kim. Again, I'm going to display my ignorance. As I look at the sheet 5-40, we seem to have no certified teachers at Barnum, Konaski, or Northeast, and we seem to have no teacher aides at Barnum, Konaski, Northeast. And I'm wondering, is that because we group the kids who need special education in a limited number of places? I guess I was expecting to see part FTEs everywhere. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Matthew. Our preschool programs are located at Mystic River Magnet School and Thames River Magnet School. So we actually, we used to have preschool programs located in about 4 of our elementary schools, and we've reduced that to really and truly just help with teacher collaboration. They're able to actually collaborate more, being in fewer schools. And it also helps with our transportation as well. So we don't
Thank
have
you
any
very
3
much.
to 5 year olds. Yep, no problem.
Beverly?
Thank you, Kim. The 2 FTEs at Mary Morrison that doing the early childhood assessment tool.
Yeah.
How many assessments do they do a day?
So in terms of how many they actually do per day, I don't have that actual number quantified, but they do many evaluations, and in addition to the evaluations, they have to write a report. They also have to interface with birth to 3. They also meet with parents, and they, you know, provide parents with a lot of support transitioning their young one from, you know, birth to 3 into the public school system. So the evaluations are really just one portion of their job. Our speech and language pathologist, she also has a caseload of students that she services on Thursdays. So I don't have exactly how many students that they evaluate per day, but they do quite a few.
Okay. I just wanted to see what their other duties were instead of just doing early childhood assessment. I thought they were just like accessing the students and saying, okay, this one needs speech, but if they're doing other things beside that, then that explains why we need 2 FTEs.
Yes.
Beverly, I tried to include a little write-up on them actually right when we got back from break in the board notes. I think it was a couple weeks ago. So you can always look back there too. And I worked with them to sort of put that together to try to raise awareness about what they do.
Okay, thank you.
Rita?
I was just gonna say, Beverly, they also consult with area preschool programs to troubleshoot and provide strategies for students who might be struggling.
Is that a paid service, Denise?
ECAT consults with them. It's part of their SRBI process before students are referred for an evaluation. They'll go out and give some strategies to support the student in that, you know, natural setting.
And one thing I think board members should be aware of is when a child is identified in birth to 3, as soon as they turn 3, they enter the public school, no matter what time of the year it is. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, Rita. It's a rolling enrollment. So students are coming in, you know, all throughout the year.
Now, does that change then with the typical peers? If you have a student that comes in, then do you contact like another typical peer and bring them in on board, or are they already established in other preschool programs?
Yeah, so we do periodic screenings throughout the school year when we see our peer numbers, you know, if they've gotten lower, you know, due to a move or what have you, or if we just want to really beef up our numbers, we will schedule some periodic screenings throughout the school year for our model peers.
The model. Thank you.
Sure.
I think I should know this, Nadine, but I don't. How many students in the class do you have for the preschool programs?
Yeah, so for our integrated preschool program, we have the capacity to seat up to 192 students. So if you think of one integrated preschool classroom teacher's caseload, for lack of a better word, in her AM session, she can have up to 16 students. So that's 8 students, you know, with a developmental delay, and 8 model peer students, making it 16 total. So, and then in the PM session, she can also have 16 students. So each teacher can have up to 32 students each. And we have 6 integrated preschool classrooms.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Nadine, it is such a pleasure to see you.
Likewise.
Thank you for doing all the good work that you do for our district.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. I wanted to also highlight just one other thing, and I know it's something that Susan has mentioned before, that our early childhood social worker, the addition of that position has been really revolutionary in terms of the support that's being provided to our, 3 to 5 year old students. In addition to that, our BCBA has really been a stabilizing force in our self-contained early honors program. So I just wanted to highlight those supports as well. Thank you.
And I think that early childhood social worker also intervenes at the K level as well, which I think coming back after COVID, we've had some, a lot of work to do. And she's been there and has also led our SEL programs as well throughout the district. So it's been really proactive.
Thank you, Susan. Just also for the board to know, I kind of hang out in early childhood circles, and Nadine always is spoken very highly of. And so I'm proud to be someone who thinks about the district a lot, and to say they have really good taste. So once again, Nadine, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Knight, where do we go next?
We're going to page 5-42. This is function 1210, a special education summer school. This is 5-42. And down on 5-43, these are the costs. It's mostly salaries. I probably should let Denise take it from here.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Summer programming for students with disabilities is called extended school year. And we have seen quite an increase in our extended school year referrals, I think pretty much as a result of the pandemic. So last year we had 110 students. This year we had 141. The program is at Mystic River, and in the budget we had budgeted for $20,000, and we felt that it was very important that we have adequate funding for the program. So you can see that we've increased the program in terms of the board's contribution to $47,869. The balance of the program is funded through the IDEA grant. The other reason why we increased the board's contribution is for the past 2 years, we've received stipends from the Connecticut State Department of Ed in the amounts of $20,000 and then $25,000 last year. And we don't anticipate those to continue. They were related to the ARP ESSER grants. Any questions on extended school year?
Rita?
If there's any way that you could reduce that number that you've added on, the extra $27,869, and bring that down, I think that would be very helpful, because I do know that the program is funded mostly by the disabilities, the IDEA grant, and it just seems that we need to do all we can to find little reductions in our budget, if possible. Thank you.
Sure. So the grant does not cover all of the costs of the program. The grants are meant to supplement, not supplant. And these are the most disabled students in the district that attend. So it requires a very high student to staff ratio, as well as specialized staff in OT, PT, and speech.
I just think it would be good then if it was a little more clarified. It's just such a lump sum, and 139.3%. It just says summer school. So maybe you could elaborate a little bit, like, are we paying for more aides? Is that, it's just such a lump sum there that it doesn't really have a description for what that increase is. So maybe you could include that somehow.
We could certainly do that.
Yeah, I think to Rita's point, I think that makes a lot of sense. Denise, is just to kind of talk about what does that X amount of dollars represent? That would be helpful.
Thank you.
Sure.
Matthew, you took your hand down, so I'm assuming you don't have the question or that got answered. So I am gonna.
I was just going to echo pretty much what you said. I remembered last week when we talked about summer school, we realized that we needed to beef up our narrative, and I think we have a great narrative to speak about. Let's share it so that we can help the RTM and the council understand.
Thank you. Beverly?
Hi, Denise. What is the student to staff ratio? You said, do you know?
Yeah, well, the student to staff ratio sometimes is 1-to-1 or 2-to-1.
Okay.
We have small class sizes. By that, I mean 10 to 12. And many of the students either have a 1-to-1 or they share a para educator. So it is a high student to staff ratio. Again, these are students with pretty significant disabilities that really require that one-to-one support, individual instruction, opportunities to practice skills, and related services like OT, PT, speech, and behavioral support from our BCBA.
How much do we get from grant funding? Do you know?
Last year it was 25,000, and the year before it was 20,000.
Okay, so it's going up some.
It did. It depended, I think, on the amount that the state had to allocate to each district. They were mini grant applications that we applied for enrichment opportunities over the summer related to the learning loss from the pandemic. But we don't anticipate that to continue.
Okay. And how many weeks do they go to the extended school year program?
We had about 141 students come for the 4-week program, and we had 51 students stay on for an additional 2-week intensive program. So their program was 6 weeks.
Thank you, Denise.
You're welcome.
Rita?
Yeah, Denise, could you, when we redo this page, could you actually show how many students, like what you just told us, how many FTEs are really involved in this program? How many aides do we have? How many students? It looks like it's a very small amount of money that we're paying, like 31,000, and it's so much more than that because of the IDEA grant. So it just looks like, oh, well, we hardly have a program, even though the narrative says, there are students involved in this. It only says 110. You're saying it was 141 last year. So maybe we can improve on that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Beverly, do you have another question?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other questions for Denise on the extended day summer program? And you think I couldn't be taught, Denise, I can actually call it like you told me to. I love it when I can do that. Mr. Knight, where are we traveling to next?
We're traveling to 5-44. This is function 1220, other special instruction. I'll hand it over to Denise.
Sure. This is the ELL staffing. So Phil, I don't know if you want to supplement, but I know that we have 2 teachers in the board's budget and then 1 teacher paid for out of Title III. Phil, did you want to add to that at all?
Yeah,
in
no, I
terms of
just wanted to
locations?
make sure. Yeah, sure. I just wanted to make sure people understood there are 3 teachers, 2 are, like as Denise was saying, are funded by this budget, 1 by Title III, And also the supplies and professional development for this group are funded by that grant as well. So those are not reflected.
And I believe one is at the elementary level, one is at the middle school level, and one is assigned to the high school level.
Right. The board can see the breakdown between the elementary buildings and then one at Groton Middle, one at Fitch.
I think Beverly, do you have a question?
Oh, yeah, thank you, Denise.
That's okay.
Denise, what is Title III funding? I never heard of that funding before.
I'll let Susan answer that, but I think Susan, is that the enrichment grant?
No, it's specific to English language or multi-language learners. So that really has always been a grant that we really invest in our, multi-language learners. And it's important that the board does assume some cost to that. I know I've been in prior districts where boards have not, and it's caused a problem. So it's really important, especially to a community like ours that is nearly considered a district-wide bilingual district because of the number of Spanish-speaking families that we have. So having a certified staff member who is TESOL trained and bilingual is really important to us at each of the levels. But one of the things you might have noticed too is the number of tutors. So we have highly trained, qualified tutors, some of them retired teachers, who are able to be kind of boots on the ground with the teachers, making sure that services are provided to our students. At the middle school and high school, they actually have a course that they go to, especially the native speakers who first come to our country, so that they get, instruction in English as well as support in their classrooms with the courses they're taking. And those tutors are really helpful in providing those services as well.
Susan, are there no tutors at the middle school? Am I reading that right or wrong?
No, there should be tutors at the middle school as well.
So
I don't know, Ken, could we have been paying for them in a different area? We do have that Title III. So we sometimes use title funds to help support that.
We do. We have, and what gets paid out of this section is tutors 7.5 or 7.5, and this district wide. They kind of spread throughout the district.
So we can get you the actual numbers at each of the levels.
Okay.
But it's sometimes we share a tutor between a couple buildings. And I know Denise and I and Phil are always looking at the caseloads like we do with special education throughout the year. So if we need to make adjustments with kids moving in and out of district, we do that so that schools are really covered with support that they need, dependent on their caseloads. And
Yeah.
also we do those lost links assessments so that we know the level that kids are moving into over time after they're here and getting this valuable instruction. So that's important too. So that kids who are lost links levels 1 and 2, for instance, may need more support, definitely need more support. And as they get to levels 4 and 5, they're ready to kind of launch. So we are monitoring that all the time.
Laura put in the chat that there are 2 tutors at Groton Middle School, but they're paid from a different funding. That's what you're saying, right?
I have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Ken and I will
Otherwise, it
work on
looks
that
like
to
we don't
make
have-
sure we've identified where it's all being paid.
Okay.
And maybe that should go into the narrative because as Beverly was pointing out, like, then it looks like we don't have any support in the middle school. So that would be kind of cool for that to be put there. I'm going to recognize Liz and then Rita.
Thanks, Kim. Susan, in these tutors, these certified staff here that are working for ELL, are they just primarily for Spanish speakers? Because we have had an increase in other languages as well. And I'm concerned that their needs are not being met as much as those who are Spanish speakers. So can you address that as their people who
That's-
speak Chinese?
That's absolutely not true. We do
Okay.
have more of our population designated who are Spanish speaking, so that's why we get the title of being bilingual.
Okay,
However, a TESOL trained teacher is equipped to be able to teach children who have multiple languages.
okay.
So-
I just
and then a
wanted-
bilingual teacher is one who really has the bilingual component. And I think in each of our situations, it happens to be Spanish since our bilingual classification is in Spanish.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of those students who are not Spanish speakers, but maybe,
Absolutely.
you know, whatever other language there. But I
Yeah.
just wanted to make sure that that was being addressed. Thank
That's
you.
absolutely very important. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up.
Rita?
My question is about line 121, the substitute special education. And again, you're going to take away that TEMP, right? Ken,
Correct. Yep.
the special ed, it doesn't seem like very much money. So my question is, when a para is out, we have, a tutor is out, do we get a substitute for them? What happens to those students? Because obviously, maybe this $2,000 you have budgeted for special ed sub teachers would be for the 2 full-time staff members, but what happens when tutors, I mean, we pay such an enormous amount of money for our tutors. Do they get a substitute?
So a substitute, it would show up for paras or tutors under the same para or tutor line. We don't have a separate substitute para line or substitute tutor line.
Well, I mean, it's just such a small amount of money compared to our other, you know, when we look at the high school or the elementary schools, we're paying they're, you know, paying for the substitutes, like it's just so much more. Either that or nobody's ever out with these teachers. I don't know. And also, you know, in 21, 22, it was 720, like almost, you know, quite a bit more. And then it sort of went down by not half, but 2/3. So I was just curious where that big drop came from. Do we have fewer tutors?
So we're utilizing more tutors when we don't have enough paras, so we would use a tutor in their place. So that's causing some of that increase, I believe.
Oh. But I do want to make sure that if a tutor is out, that we could hopefully get a substitute in there. Otherwise, these students would go back to a classroom and not even understand what's going on, you know, if the tutor doesn't show up, or there just doesn't seem to be, it doesn't seem right, the amount that we're paying for substitutes here.
I think Phil and I should reach out to the principals to get a more accurate response, Rita, before we speak. So let
Okay.
us talk to the principals. They really would know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none? Ken, where do we travel next?
5-46, function 1230, special education. And I will hand it over to Denise.
Thank you, Ken. So this is the line where our certified special education teachers are budgeted. And these are the teachers that provide the differentiation, curriculum modifications for students with disabilities in a variety of settings. Could be the general ed classroom, could be a resource room, or could be a classroom where students with more intense needs receive most of their instruction. You can see on the column for 23-24 that there is a change. There is a plus 1.7 for the high school. And the 1.0 is a resource teacher that was hired through the ARP IDEA grant, which is going away in June. And due to the caseloads at the high school, which are between 17 and 19, we really need to continue that position so that the caseloads are equitable and consistent across all of our teachers. So that's the 1.0 addition. And then the 0.7 is comprised of 2 teachers. One is a teacher who has been moved from central office up to the high school to support students with more significant needs in our autism and multiple disabilities program. We've had an increase in enrollment in that program, and instead of one classroom, we now have two. So that was a change from a remedial program at central office to the high school. And then the point two is a change in terms of our transition academy teacher. That teacher also is certified to work with students who are visually impaired. And next year, we will have her full-time in the Transition Academy, and we will be contracting with Board of Ed Services for the Blind, which is a state agency that provides services to students who are blind free of charge. So that's the increase of the 1.7 at the high school. All the other FTEs remain the same. And in terms of the para educators at the bottom of the chart, we have 157. There's no change next year. These are the para educators that are supporting our students and our teachers and are working with students with more significant needs, and mainly in the self-contained classrooms, but some of them in the resource model as well. There's an additional 44 paras that are funded through the IDEA grant. And if you look down below at the budget on page 5-47, you can see in terms of line 102, special ed certified, there is an increase of 193,000, and that is the 1.7 FTE increase, as well as the contractual increase through the new contract of the GEA. And then for line 131, you can see there is an increase also for the para educators. And again, that is to accommodate that competitive wage adjustment. And then down below, you can see line 561. That is a vocational skills tuition line. And that is where we budget for those students who attend the Ledyard Vocational Agricultural Program, as well as some of our students who are juniors or seniors in high school or between 18 and 22 and require supported employment for some of the companies, one in particular that we work with, Sharp Training. And you can see that there is no increase to that account. And then 588, we did remove some funds we had for field trips because all of our field trips occur through the school site budget. They're all aligned to the curriculum. So those field trips are really accounted for at the building level. And then lastly, we do have funds in line 607, pupil tests. These are individual tests that are administered to students either to find out if they're eligible for services initially, or we're required to reevaluate children every 3 years to see if they've made growth or if they still require services. And there's quite a few new additions of assessments. There's quite a few assessments that address truancy, anxiety, school phobia, and our psychologists and teachers are always looking to expand their repertoire of assessments. Actually, I'm sorry, this isn't the psychological. This would be more in the area of dyslexia. So we've been adding additional assessments that evaluate students in the areas of reading comprehension, word ID, written language, phonemic awareness, and fluency. Because dyslexia several years ago became a new disability in Connecticut in terms of standing alone. So we have increased our testing, and we also have supplies for each of our teachers. So they get a certain amount of money to purchase materials that meet the needs of their students. And we've kept those funds the same, but I just wanted to be able to explain them to you in case you were wondering what they're used for.
Denise, thank you. I'm going to recognize Rita.
Denise, I have two questions. One is for Denise and one is for Ken. My question, Denise, is do you still contract with Seabird for the 18 to 21-year-old population?
We have not, because we found that the services in our program, the Transition Academy at the central office, are very similar to the services that Seabird provides. But we do have students when they age out at age 22, they transition to Seabird at that point.
Okay, and then my question, Ken, in online 111 and 120, do we really need to have the word regular there? Because this is just special education. So these are not regular sub teachers, because you really have it sort of zeroed out. You had something in there, but then it's sort of zeroed out. You didn't not carrying it forward.
Yeah, I'll address that.
Special ed, I mean, maybe we could just take out the regular ed part of
Okay.
it.
All right, we'll do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Beverly,
Denise, you said the teacher of the blind, you're no
Yes.
longer going to use, you're gonna go with the State Department
Yes.
services. Do they come into the school to work with the student? How does that work with the state?
They do. They do. They have teachers that they assign regionally, and we've worked with them before, and we're going to work with them again. Last year we had a young lady move in. She was a military student from a military family, and she learned Braille. She works with Braille, and that's a very time-intensive instruction. So we had to have BESB, they're called Board of Ed Services for the Blind, provide more intensive instruction to help her with her Braille. And they also work with one of our preschool students. So next year they will, we don't have a large caseload right now. Our transition teacher is consulting on 2 students and we have 1 referral. So it is a small caseload, but you just don't know. We could have a student move in who does use Braille, and that is more intensive.
Thank you.
any other questions? Hearing none. Ken, where do we travel?
We are going to 5-48. 5-48. This is function 1250. Teacher of the blind that we were talking about before. I'll let Denise take it from here.
Sure. So we have a teacher in our transition academy who had a partner that was there to relieve her when she would work on with her students of the blind on her caseload. And that teacher, as I just alluded to, has now moved to the high school due to increase in enrollment. So we are looking to eliminate the 0.2 FTE in her job description and have her full-time in the transition program and have Board of Ed services service these students. So this is a reduction, and the services will be assumed by the state agency. So the expenses on the next page will go away.
But we have 100% profit. Let's keep that one highlighted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think it's always good to find those state resources that work and are free of charge. We'll keep our eyes open for those.
All right, Mr. Ken, where do we travel to next?
5-54.
5-54.
5-54. This is function 1280. Hearing impaired. Oops, I went too far. Oh, I didn't go far enough. There we go. Denise, did you want to go from here or do you want me? Okay.
Sure. So this is one teacher that is in the board's budget, and she is a teacher of the deaf, and she has a caseload throughout the district. She's considered an itinerant teacher. She works with teams to help, again, modify instruction for students who are deaf or hard of hearing. A big part of her job is supporting their equipment. Most of the equipment we're using now for amplification is Bluetooth enabled. So there's quite a bit of very delicate, expensive equipment that our teacher of the deaf is very conscientious about, making sure that we have nice, soft packages for those boots and microphones and equipment to be stored in, and making sure that when they travel from classroom to classroom that they're not damaged. So she does a phenomenal job, and we're very lucky to have her. In addition to servicing her caseload, she teaches several courses at the high school for American Sign Language. And then in terms of the expenses associated with this position, we did reduce the travel because some of her students are clustered in just a few schools. Majority are clustered at high school, middle school, and we know that now that's a connected campus. So that has decreased travel. There is still some travel, but we were able to cut it in half, especially because we have only 5 elementary schools that she's traveling to. And
Denise, I'm so sorry, Denise, to interrupt you. She also travels to some of the New London magnet schools as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Nadine. And then for line 735, we do have funds in there for the equipment because sometimes the equipment, the amplification equipment does get damaged and it needs to be replaced. That would be the boots that go on hearing aids and the speakers that the teachers talk in, the microphones and the receivers. And we do have some towers as well for students who don't have hearing aids but need amplification in the classroom. So there are times when that equipment needs to be replaced or repaired. And we kept that the same.
Any questions? All right. Next.
All right.
So guys, it looks like we are almost done. We have another huge chunk around support services. I know that it's 8:06, but I'm just I'm feeling like we've got Denise and Nadine here, so let's kind of keep on cracking with this these line items, and I hope that everyone's okay with that. Okay, let's go.
5-64. This is function 2101, support services, special education, central office.
Okay, thank you, Ken. So this is the area where my position is budgeted, the Director of Pupil Services. We also have our supervisors, of which Nadine is one. We have one supervisor, Ms. Macklin, who oversees early childhood education. We have another supervisor, Mrs. Van Ness, who works very closely with our academy behavioral programs. And then we have another supervisor, Ms. Rutolo, who works primarily at the high school level in our alternative program. All 4 of us also have caseloads of students out of district. Nadine primarily has the elementary school children at Regional Multicultural, the Friendship School, and the New London Magnets, as well as some students placed out of district. Katie, our supervisor of the academy, has some students placed at the Bradley School and Learn Ocean Avenue Learning, students who have whose behaviors significantly impact their learning. And Amy also has a caseload of students at New London Science and Tech, Ledyard VOAG, Sharp Training, and several other schools, Marine Science Magnet. And then my caseload is pretty much, you know, I don't know how it's divided, but I have about 11 students at High Road School, River Street School, various programs throughout the state. And we also have our support staff. We have 2 admin assistants that support really the district, in terms of supporting teachers with IEPs and 504 plans, checking them to be sure they're in compliance and managing our records. And then the supervisors have a secretary who supports them in terms of scheduling their meetings. And she really is in charge of records when students move in or students leave. She makes sure that those schools receive the records they need to implement those special programs.
Can
and
I
then
just
you
do
will
a
see-
shout out for those assistants, because during this year where we took on CT SEDS, and I don't know that the State Department
Oh.
was really ready to get that rocking and rolling because they had a problem with the pilot last year. These people have been instrumental in supporting our teachers, boots on the ground every day in so many ways. So they have really taken on the training and the learning of CT SEDS with Denise and, you know, our supervisors, so that they can then support our schools and our teachers in the schools. So I just can't say enough. This year has been a real challenge, and I certainly appreciate the whole team for what they've taken on. I wish it wasn't so difficult for them.
Thank you. I can't believe I forgot to say that. Jeez. So you'll see lastly, the addition of our board certified behavior analyst. So I wanted to explain to the board that we have always contracted with Learn for board certified behavior analysts. And we have 1.5. So we have a full-time BCBA and then a part-time BCBA from Learn. And when we came back, you know, from COVID, we were seeing a lot of students re-entering school and who weren't in school. We're seeing a big learning loss, and we're also seeing students enroll with more significant disabilities. We'll talk about it a little bit when we talk about OT, but a lot of our students have spent a lot of time on screens and electronic devices and haven't had a lot of interaction, play, coloring, puzzles, things like that, you know, taking their turns, waiting their turn. So we've seen an increase in social emotional learning, which I think the whole state and the country has. So we really have wanted for a long time to have our own board certified behavior analyst. And we did a survey of our neighboring districts and found out that we were actually understaffed in relation to our population. So our neighboring partners had more staff than we did. So we went ahead and we added a BCBA for the district in our IDEA grant. And we are now at a level of staffing that is appropriate based on our student needs, and it makes us commensurate with our regional neighbors. And I just want to explain to you that what a board certified behavior analyst does. This is someone who is a master's level professional and who really understands behavioral science and helps teams, not just teams of students with autism spectrum disorders, but teams of students whose behavior is severely impacting their learning, and other positive behavior interventions have not been effective. So what this position does is they kind of work with the team. It's a very collaborative position to identify the behaviors that are interfering. They then identify the function of the behavior. What do they think is driving this behavior? What is it that the student is seeking? Or what are they avoiding? And then they work with us to develop strategies and interventions that will address that need, that function in a positive way, so that we can replace the atypical behaviors with more socially appropriate behaviors. And the reason why this is such a special science to me is because behavior doesn't change right away. Some of these behaviors are long-standing behaviors, and some of these behaviors have been inadvertently reinforced. So the BCBA brings in a different lens in terms of looking at the environment and how we can structure and shape that environment, as well as how we can all respond consistently so that the student is getting the same response from all of the team members in order to help change those behaviors or shape those behaviors. They also work with us to design data collection methodologies so that we can see if the behavior is improving, at least, data wise. And they analyze the data and they develop the overall plan called a behavior intervention plan. So they provide staff training, modeling, parent intervention, parent communication. And when we have a really tough case and we're looking like, gee, do we maybe need to outplace this student? This is a person that can come in and give a level of expertise that is very reassuring to parents. And I will say to school teams as well. So it is very beneficial that we have our own behavior analyst. These people are this position is becoming more popular in the world of public schools. It used to be a position you would see in a private clinic, but within the past 10 years, they've become more mainstream in public schools. And certainly with the increase in social emotional learning that we're seeing among our students, it is a very, very important position. And we've just been so fortunate that the individual that we've hired is, number one, extremely knowledgeable, but number two, has great interpersonal skills, and teams just really enjoy working with him. So we very much would like to retain this position. It is an 11-month position. He works the whole school year and he works for the whole 6 weeks of summer school. So I feel that, we get a high level of return on our investment.
Just to add to our story, in building these really dynamic programs, whether we're talking about the Academy program that hosts a highly certified, trained special educator with a social worker, or the ABA program, or having a resource like the BCBA, that's what enables us to keep our own students in our own district, in their own schools. It works really kind of 90% of the time these days, which is incredible. There are often times that we need more therapeutic environments, or they need more mental health care than can be provided in a school. But there has been really a huge return in all of this and building these programs so that our students can stay with us. And there are efficiencies there too, where sometimes those out of district placements can cost up to $100,000 per child. But when we keep the children in the district and provide the supports that they need, it really is an efficient way to do business and a best practice way for our kids and their families. So I just wanted to add that to the story.
Thank you, Susan. And Ken, if you just want to scroll down, you can see that the only cost associated with the BCBA is the salary.
And benefits.
And benefits.
I'm going to recognize Rita. Andrea, I'm going to need for you to sort of take over for just a second. I have a sick family member that I need to attend to.
Oh. Okay. See, my question, Denise, in the under administration, you have a special services facilitator for grades 6 through 12.5 position. What does that person do?
Thank you, Rita. I overlooked that. That is our student services facilitator for grades 6 through 12. This position is a part-time administrator position and part-time teacher position at the high school and middle school. And this position coordinates and chairs planning and placement team meetings and Section 504 meetings so that administrators can be freed up to monitor and oversee curriculum and be in the classrooms.
Okay.
This was one of those 4 coordinator positions that we put into place, Rita, a few years back when Mike was here. We had one in humanities, one in STEM, one in literacy, ELA, and then the one in special ed for facilitation of PPTs.
Okay. And Denise, I thought you said that we had a 1.5 BCBA. Is it just one person? Or is half of it covered with the IDEA grant?
No, we have 1.6 FTEs from Learn, and then 1.0 FTE. Oh, sorry, from the ARP IDEA grant that we'd like to add to the board's budget. That would bring our total BCBAs to 2.6.
Oh, and where is that reflected here?
The Learn contract is in another part of the budget.
I see. And how many students do we have at the Ocean Avenue Learning Academy? Do you know?
I would have to count. I'm gonna say maybe 6.
6. And some of them come back. They're there for maybe 3 months to be evaluated, and then they come back.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Nadine has one who's graduating in a few weeks.
Great.
Bittersweet.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
the goal is always for our students to return.
right. Thank you.
Ken, I guess we're looking for the next one.
Okay. We're headed to page 5-66. This is function 2110, social work services. You want to take it from here, Denise, or?
Sure. Thank you, Ken.
Yep.
So our social workers provide support not only mainly to students, but also to families. And they really help coordinate services with outside agencies. So they're a big support to families, but they provide a lot of support day to day to students in terms of helping them manage behavior and helping them make good decisions, and helping them develop those social skills that we know are so important to being successful in school and in the community. The social workers that you see on this page, one is at Charles Barnum. She supports our students in the 4-5 Academy. These are students who have difficulty with self-regulation. And she's a very important part of that program so that the teacher can continue teaching and she can work on self-regulation and making good decisions when students are having difficulty. We also have 2 social workers at Thames Academy, Thames River, and they're in the 2 academy programs. One is a K-1 classroom and one is a 2-3 classroom. And their roles are very similar in terms of the 3 of them working with students who we know have difficulty with behavior and social skills. They have a very low frustration tolerance, some of them, and they require some very specialized strategies and interventions to manage behavior. And then we have a school social worker at Fitch High School who does peer mediation, crisis resolution, crisis response, and again, involves students in groups, meets with students in groups and individually, and helps parents and students connect with outside agencies. And then we have 8 additional social workers that are funded through various grants. And you can see in terms of the salary, there is a decrease on line 102. And that is, we had a change in staff. So one staff member transferred to another district and we hired a beginning teacher. So there was some savings in terms of salary there. But other than that, there's money budgeted to buy supplies for these individuals. They do use some therapeutic activities, both in their individual sessions and in their group sessions. A lot of visuals and a lot of instructional tools to help achieve their goals and objectives.
See that Rita has her hand up.
Yes, I do. Denise, you said that 8 social workers are at Groton Middle School, Charles Barnum, and Thames River, correct?
There's one.
No, I don't
There's
mean
one
our, but
at, no, there's
the one that are paid for by the Military Family Liaison. Didn't you say there were 8 paid by that?
There are 8 additional social workers in the district paid for through grants, not the military family life liaisons or
Okay.
counselors.
So could you show us where they're located, which schools? Because, you know, Thames Mystic River Magnet has the same amount of special education programs as Thames River Magnet, yet there are two there. And it looks like there's an additional one from the military family liaison, social workers. So they would have three at Thames River? No, Ken? Yeah.
I have a chart that it's supposed to be on here. It didn't make it into this version, but I have a chart of the social workers. If I can put it up now, if that's okay.
Please do.
Here it is.
And while you're doing that, Rita, I just wanted to emphasize that the social workers that you see on this page in terms of Thames River and Barnum are working in our programs for students who have difficulty managing behavior. The BCBAs are really the support at Mystic River in those autism classrooms.
Okay.
Can you see this this chart?
Yeah. So actually Thames River has 3.5. Two at the high school, two at
Yes.
Groton Middle.
Yep, so you can see the 0.5 at Thames and the 0.5 at Mystic River. We have, we used our ARP IDEA funds to provide an early childhood social worker who is split because our preschool programs are only at those two schools. So she's split between Mystic and Thames.
So Thames really has quite a bit of support, but all our schools have social workers now. I remember at one time when none of our schools had, well, there was only one at the high school. And now all the schools have a social worker as well as school psychologists, correct?
Correct. And it looks a little top heavy for Thames because we have 2 academy programs located there.
Okay.
And those social workers are assigned in those classrooms to support the students so that when they're having difficulty, the teacher can continue teaching.
But I have to say that Mystic River has the same level of support. It just comes in the way of BCBAs for the autism program. But it was really important that Northeast Academy and Charles Barnum for the rest of their populations also received a social worker because they can do things that the school psychs do differently. School psychologists really handle a lot of the PPTs and the special education work. While they do some counseling, the social worker is very effective in working with families and helping assist the family and help the child. So
I'm all for the social workers, but it's
Yeah.
a school psychologist that I think can be shared, and I hope they are shared at some
if
of
you
our
saw the
schools.
number of PPTs and the number of,
But we do
hours.
have now special ed supervisors that are supposed to be helping out with those PPTs and running them, correct?
Well, they do some of that with some real, specialized cases, shall I say.
I
But
remember when Denise was there by herself.
they don't have time to run all the PPTs. I mean, even handling the ones out of district is really pretty big caseload.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think what Susan might be referring to, I don't mean to speak for her, is that these social workers, as well as the school psychologists, provide social skills instruction. They're a direct service provider for our students. So they meet with groups of students and they meet with students individually, and they work on developing appropriate social skills. And so they do attend PPT meetings and update progress and write goals and objectives. They also attend those SRBI meetings because they see a lot of students who are not identified yet. And they're actually trying to, deliver those intervention services so that those students, don't have to be identified.
So
And-
I think that these are really good questions, but I'm trying to be mindful of the fact that we have a lot more to go through. I want to make sure that people get their questions asked. And if we need to have more information about special services, I think that we can add another agenda item to talk about all things support services. And so Denise at that point can go into more detail about how do these support services help with our children quite frankly, in their learning. But let me recognize Beverly, please.
Thank you, Denise. I'm all in for the 12 social workers. I was a social worker one time myself, and I'm very glad to see each school has a social worker. But my question is, when will the ARP funder end for these social workers, that these 8 additional ones that are, well, whatever ones are funded by the ARP grant? Kim, can you send us that little slide that you had?
Yes. We'll
Okay.
add that too to the chart because I think that's a good part of the narrative. Some
Yeah.
are through Title I, Beverly. So our Title I schools, they really were the first to take social workers on board, knowing the significance of the value that they bring. So those Title I funds are pretty secure. Is the ARP ESSERs that go away, I think September 2024.
Okay.
Yeah, and the
And
idea,
how many social workers are funded by the ARP ESSER?
3.5.
Okay. So those are positions that in next year, I guess, we're gonna have to
After
go on our
next year.
budget.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
after next year, we have a full year.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. Those are positions we're gonna have to look at very carefully.
All right.
So at least for the 2024, if you were going to advocate for them, it would be half of the 3.5 if they end in September, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
so
gonna
it
be a
goes all the way through
full
the
year.
2024 school year.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Good question, Beverly.
Yeah.
If I'm not hearing anything more, let's move us on.
All right, we're moving on to page 5-68. This is function 2120, guidance services.
okay, so these are our school counselors that support students in terms of problem solving, scheduling, career college readiness, and other social emotional areas. And we have 6 at Groton Middle School. We have 6 school counselors at Fitch High School, with the addition of a 0.6 counselor in our career center. And you can see we have no changes in terms of FTEs. We do have 2 admin assistants in the guidance office, both at the high school and the middle school. And again, no changes to the support staff. And
Beverly? Bev, do you have a question?
Denise, what's the ratio for guidance counselor to student?
I believe the recommended ratio is 200 to 1. And that's a ratio that we obviously stay within.
And do you think that's a realistic ratio?
We're not recommending any changes to the FTEs.
But do you think that ratio is a good ratio, 200 to 1, or?
Well, I think that, there are other individuals in the building who can support the students, such as the social workers, school psychologists. I think the school counselor is an important part of the team.
Okay.
Rita?
I do know, I can add to that, Beverly, that in both our middle school and our high school, they really move with the students. So in the middle school, it's by grade level and they rotate through the grade levels as the kids rotate, and they rotate with an assistant principal. So it creates a team that's pretty cohesive and really gets to know the students. That's a real big goal. At the high school, I know that we're looking forward to having something in place. It's more like a house system where you'll have 2 counselors with an assistant principal. They go more by the alphabet. And so that they rotate with the students through their 4 years as well. And I think the more we can personalize in these big schools and, and really get to know our students and have them have a go-to person that they feel comfortable with, and hopefully will be a good teacher, a good counselor, a social worker, though someone that they really feel confident in and can reach out to when they need them.
Rita?
Who is the head of the guidance counselors now?
So I would say it's the principals in the building.
Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And my other question is that if by the population at the middle school and at the high school, Beverly, they're not reaching 200 to 1. They're less than that.
They're about 179, I think.
Yeah, so that, which is good. But I like the fact that you're thinking about making sure that the student has the same guidance counselor for 4
Yes.
years.
Yes.
It's really important.
And I think also, really tightening up the supervision of the guidance counselors with those assistant principals. So you have like a 2-to-1 ratio and they can work together to make sure needs are met as a team.
Thank you.
Mhm.
William?
Yeah, the assistant principal and guidance counselor combo is just amazing. We just had a meeting with our guidance counselor, with my son and his 504 and assistant principal, Matt Brown. And having that combo is so useful. And it's a great resource for the students to know that it's not just the guidance counselor that they can reach out to. But having that assistant principal, as somebody that you can reach out to and use as a resource is just an excellent thing.
And I
Thank
would
you.
have to add to that, that really the way that Fitch High School was designed was to have more of a house system so that you have that assistant principal and those 2 counselors on every floor so that kids will be able to get to them and they're really out in the mainstream in the school with the classes, with the kids. And I just love that model. And it was Matt Brown who brought it to my attention years ago. And we've kind of worked with Ted to see it back again. So I'm really excited.
Matt
you.
it was probably his dad that brought it up because his
It
dad
could have been. You're
Yeah.
right. Could have been.
All right. Any other questions? If not, Mr. Knight, where do we go next?
5-70, function 2130, health services.
All right. So this is a 0.5 clerical support for the nurse's office at Fitch High School, and there's no changes. Also budgeted in this account are our OT and PT services. We have a PT contract with PhysioCare out of Salem, Connecticut for 1.6 FTEs of physical therapists. And we have a budget or a contract with Learn to provide our occupational therapists and our certified occupational therapy assistants. And we also include that's line 333. We also have on line 332, other professional services. There's a slight increase in rates. This is where our BCBAs are contracted from Learn, as well as a consultant that works with one of our multiply disabled classrooms to help differentiate the curriculum at Catherine Kolnaski. We also have Dr. Seekand, who is just an exceptional medical advisor. He's been a great addition to the district. His salary is in here. And we also have telehealth for speech and language that's in here to accommodate for fluctuating caseloads throughout the district. And then I believe if a student requires a specialized evaluation, like a neuropsychological evaluation or a special transition assessment, we have, this is the account where that is housed, where that lives. And then there's some health supplies for the nurses' offices.
Any questions for Denise about this account? If not, let's move on.
Can I ask Denise? Denise, can you explain again the other professional services?
Yes. So this is where the contract for our board certified behavior analysts are. These are other services that support our students. So we have a contract with Learn for BCBAs, 1.6 FTEs. Our medical advisor, this budget is for our medical advisor, Dr. Seekand. We do have a consultant that supports a medically fragile class at Catherine Kolnaski. And we have a telehealth speech pathologist that supports a fluctuating population at Mystic River and Thames River, as well as evaluations that we can't do in district, like a psychiatric evaluation, a neuropsychological, or a specialized transition assessment.
Okay.
Could-
Thank you.
Could we list a few of those underneath? So
Yes,
people.
in the
would look at
narrative?
that?
Yep.
Yes, in the narrative, or someplace so that people understand how involved this other professional services, because it's quite a bit of money and.
Yeah, good idea. I think the more that we can explain, especially before we deliver budget books to the, and we fine tune this budget, I think the better off it's going to be in answering some questions ahead of time. Thank you.
And Susan, can you also break down the OT and PT services? Can you do OT and then PT? Okay, thank you.
Yes. And I
Anything else?
think the COVID has definitely affected that as well, that we've seen, more need in that area, more caseloads.
Increased
You know,
referrals for evaluations.
And I think so many, even during COVID, were done kind of virtually by Zoom, and it's not as effective as in person, certainly for that.
Any other questions? If not, I'm moving us along.
5-72, which is function 2140, psychological services.
Psychologists who, I think I have an unstable internet connection. Sorry about that. Our school psychologists support the whole student population in terms of crisis intervention, informal counseling groups, either groups or individually, if students need that. They're very available to support all students in the building. They do spend a majority of their time with students with disabilities, but that's not the only group of students that they're available for. They do provide services specifically to students with disabilities, either individually or in groups. They do evaluate students, either students being referred initially for services or students who have a 3-year reevaluation to determine ongoing eligibility. They're very involved in the SRBI referral process in terms of creating positive behavioral interventions and supports for students who are struggling behaviorally. And they work very closely with parents to help refer, again, if they need help with other community agencies. So they wear a lot of hats, but they're very effective team members that really support the whole building. And we're not recommending any changes to the staffing.
Any questions about this?
Yes, why does Groton Middle has one extra than Fitch?
Sure. So there are more evaluations at the middle school level. At the high school level, we're really preparing students either for the transition academy or for college or career readiness. And we do have at the middle school an academy classroom, and there is one school psychologist assigned to that academy classroom. And then at the high school, we have an alternative program, and we have one school psychologist assigned to the alternative program. But the middle school does have more referrals and more evaluations. So we have 2 psychologists at the middle school and servicing all of the population 6 through 8.
So over time, how much, we have 11 now, how much has that increased? Let's say since 2019 or 2018, it doesn't really, we go back to, I guess we had 11 in 2021, 2022, but we've never had 11 before. It seems, when did that increase to 11 people?
This is consistent. When we consolidated our elementary schools, we kept the same number of staffing. And when we consolidated our middle schools, we kept the same number of staffing due to student needs.
Okay.
So at the elementary school, we have a psychologist, a 0.5, who's split between the two big elementaries, Thames and Mystic. She supports testing primarily. She does a lot of student evaluations. And at the middle school, again, we have 2 psychologists that evaluate the whole student body, 6 through 8, as well as provide student support services to all of those students.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Not only that, Denise, but then they have to write everything up, and that takes a long time.
Right. That's
And then-
right. They have to write their report and deliver it at the PPT. They do write goals and objectives and provide direct service and consultation.
And there's also a period of time that you have to go by, right? Like there's like, there's a federal mandate around how long you can do a testing to report. So there's a lot of things that are going on. Any other questions about this line item? If not, Mr. Knight, where do we go next?
5-74. This is function 2150, speech and language services.
Okay. These are our experts in terms of helping students develop communication skills. They work on expressive language, receptive language, and pragmatic language. They're also quite adept at providing assistive or augmentative communication devices to our students. Many of our students who are nonverbal or have limited verbal skills have a device that speaks for them. And the speech people are very skilled at selecting the appropriate device and the appropriate app and working with the student in teams so that everyone is able to use that device effectively. Again, we have a decrease. We have at least one speech pathologist in every building. We do have at Catherine Kolnaski -4. That is a speech pathologist who went to ECAT. So she was working with a self-contained classroom at Catherine Kolnaski and transferred to the ECAT program at Mary Morrison. We do have at Mystic River Magnet.
Denise, what's the ECAP program?
That's the early childhood assessment team that Nadine was talking about. They do our child find evaluations and our birth to 3 evaluations at Mary Morrison. That team is comprised of a special education teacher and a speech pathologist. And then at Mystic River Magnet, again, we have a negative, a reduction of 0.4. And that again was, I believe that was also this person who went to ECAT was at this school as well. She was at Mary Morrison. I'm sorry, she was at Catherine Kolnaski and Mystic River. So that position has moved to ECAT. And then we have 3 speech pathologists. You might be wondering why we have 3 FTEs at Mystic River. So we have 1 speech pathologist dedicated to the preschool program. Many of our preschool students have a developmental delay, and that is they're very impacted in their communication skills. We have 1 speech pathologist that works in our autism program, because many of our students with autism, that's one of the primary areas where they're impacted is communication. And then we have 1 speech pathologist that works with students in grades 1 through 5. She kind of services the rest of the building. So because we have so many specialized programs there, and many of those students have speech and language delays, we've had to increase the staff at Mystic River to meet those IEP and 504 hours. Thames River has 2.6 FTEs. Again, 1 is dedicated to preschool, and the remaining are dedicated to K through 5 because that is a very large school. And then at Groton Middle, we have 2 speech pathologists because we do have 2 self-contained autism programs at Groton Middle. So one of those 2 speech paths spends the bulk of her day in those self-contained classrooms, working with students with autism and other multiple disabilities. And then the other one services the remainder of the building. And then at the high school, we have 1 speech pathologist. And I had stated earlier that we had split our 2 self-contained program, our 1 self-contained program into 2. So we do have an additional, you'll see in the narrative, 1.0 FTE that's funded by ARP ESSER. And she is at the high school for part of a good chunk of her time. So we're not recommending any increases in speech staffing. And then in terms of the budget, there is a slight increase in salaries, and there is an increase in benefits. There's no increase for travel. And we kept the testing and supply budget level because it's appropriate to meet our needs at this time. So just a very slight increase in this group.
Any questions about that? All right, we're on the home stretch. Mr. Knight, where do we go?
So, hold on, let's see.
We're going to the back of the book, right, Ken?
Yeah, we're going to the very back, which is good. We are going to page 1-04. Oh, wasn't quite there. And I'll orient you to this section. So this is our tuition section. And so the top half, there is a chart for special education student enrollment for out of district. This has not been updated. This is last year's chart. So we're working on providing this information, and we will have that by the end of this week.
And we might need to come back to this because it really is a work in progress. We're working on that right now. So, and that's going to be important to look at.
Why don't we wait to look at it then?
And if it's a work, thank you, Rita. If this is a work in progress and it's going to change or possibly have a change, why don't we do that when you have Denise, I'm sorry, that might mean that you might have to like zoom in again, but if
No, that makes sense. And you all have really done due diligence. It's like getting to that second hour. So I really appreciate that, but probably would make more sense if we get you the accurate information to review.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's fine.
Yep, that feels like that makes sense.
Mhm.
You
Agreed.
guys, thank you so much. This has been it has been a long night and I do appreciate that. But this has been some really good conversation. I've got lots of agenda topics that we will be getting busy on. But I once again thanks everyone. I will take a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn, Rita.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Oppose, abstain, motion is carried. Good night, folks.